I just started posting articles, and so many good things started happening once I started sharing what I was learning. It evolved into so much more. So I just kept doing that. I didn't know you could do this as a career, to be honest.
I have here Nir Eyal, who's going to talk to me about his Medium journey and what it was like to publish not just one, but actually several books during the time that he's been writing on Medium. So, Nir, go ahead and introduce yourself and tell me a little bit about what you like to write about.
Thanks. It's great to be here. I've written two books and about to publish a third. And my first book is called Hooked: How to Build Habit-Forming Products, which is about how companies can shape user behavior to create good habits in folks. And then the second book was called Indistractable. It was about how to control your attention and choose your life, which is all about how do we fight distraction to those bad habits that take us off track. And then my latest book, Beyond Belief, is about how the power of belief shapes our perception of reality, how we can use beliefs to live longer, to make more money, to be more attractive, to have better relationships, how all of this shapes our reality, all through the power of beliefs, not through any woo-woo, not through shaping the universe in any special way, but actually very science-based tactics that that just blew my mind over the years writing this book.
Is that what you tend to write about on Medium as well, this behavioral design?
Yeah, exactly. So I always like the intersection of psychology, technology, and business in some way. And so that's kind of been my intersection that I've written about on Medium as well.
How did you get started writing in that topic? Like, was it something that you were just interested in, or did you have a lot of personal, professional, academic experience in that subject?
Yeah, so I started a tech company back in 2008. And then when that was acquired, I had some free time and I was a journalism undergrad and I just came back to my original love of writing. And I didn't know you could make a living off of it. Frankly, I just wanted to write a little bit and I had some free time trying to figure out what I was going to do next. And I just started posting articles and so many good things started happening once I started sharing what I was learning. And my MO is a little different from other authors. I don't write what I know, I write what I want to know. So when I was struggling with distraction, I was writing about, hey, here's what I'm trying, and here's what's working, here's what's not working, here's what the science says. And it evolved into so much more. With my first book, I just started writing articles, and then I got an email from one of my old professors at Stanford who said, hey, I really like what you're doing. How about we teach a class together? And that turned into 4 years of teaching at the Graduate School of Business and later at the Hasselplattner Institute of Design, all from just sharing articles. In fact, I wrote an article called The Strange Sex Habits of Silicon Valley, which was about how people go to bed every night checking their phone. This was very early. Now everybody knows this, but at the time this was pretty novel back in like 2014 or so. But like, it was an article about how we all go to bed fondling our phones and caressing our iPads and what that means for our future. And that's actually how I got a call from my agent, Christy Fletcher, who's been my agent ever since for three books now. And so I just kept doing that. I didn't know you could do this as a career, to be honest.
So it sounds like you've been writing actually longer than Medium has existed. So can you tell me a little bit about what brought you to Medium in the first place, and like how it compared to other platforms? I'm guessing you had like an OG blog at some point.
Yeah, on blogger.com. Do you remember that?
Probably before
Blogger.com.
my time, actually.
It could be before your time. Okay, now I feel old. But yeah, that's how I just started. Blogger.com was kind of what you did, and you put
Yeah.
up some words, and it was a pretty crummy experience. And then Medium came along, and it came with a built-in audience of people who were engaging with your writing, and
Mhm.
that was pretty revolutionary. That was pretty amazing. And so I started posting there as well, and then I started a publication which I still have on Medium called Psychology of Stuff, where once in a while I'll take guest posts from other authors as well.
I'll post the link in the video description for anybody who wants to check that out. When did you start writing on Medium then?
What year was Medium founded?
2012?
That would be it.
Wow.
I
Oh
jumped
my
on
gosh.
super, super early. Yeah.
Almost a decade and a half of publishing on
Yeah.
Medium. That's
Okay,
really
now I
incredible.
really feel old. Has it been that long? It doesn't seem that long.
Okay, so I know that there are a lot of other platforms on the internet that exist other than Medium.
Mhm.
What makes you keep publishing on Medium as opposed to any of those other places?
Well, I think that every site has its own flavor. It has its own
Hmm.
community. And there's a very vibrant community on Medium of people who consistently interact with my posts. And I think that's what keeps me coming back. I really like feedback. And I like the kind of feedback that is authentic and interesting and enlightening. And, many times when I post on other platforms, I'm not going to name names, you can just tell it's written by AI. It's not very additive. Whereas I feel like when I post on Medium, I'm consistently getting a few comments that make me think, make me grow, make me inspired to write another article. And so that would be why I keep coming back.
So, in your decade plus of publishing on Medium, can you think of any stories that have really resonated with your readers? Obviously, I know it sounds like one of them turned into a book deal.
There was definitely one I remember that was kind of a summary of my book Indistractable, where I was
Mhm,
kind of laying out the big ideas when I was just trying to spread the word of like, hey, here's what I'm thinking, here's the model
mhm.
I'm looking for. Is anybody else having this problem that I think I'm solving for myself here? And that one really resonated as well.
Unsurprising. Yeah, it's
Mhm.
I really liked what you were saying earlier about writing what you want to know, and I
Mhm.
think maybe that's why like thinking in public is such a scary but also I don't know, it makes you grow in a way, like forcing
Oh,
yourself
totally.
to write through these problems that you're wrestling with. And so it makes a lot of sense to me that those are the stories that are reaching your
I,
readers and
I
making them think as well.
I think this is a secret superpower that I wish more people would know about. I think a lot of people have the hunch that this is true because they probably did it in high school and then they got all the joy beaten out of them by the school system, so they never picked up a pen or started typing their thoughts ever again. Because if it wasn't for a grade, why do it? But I think writing, good writing requires good thinking. It just by its very definition, like you will see your own bullshit when you put it on the page and read it back to yourself. You'll figure out, oh, the thing that I thought was true, is there really evidence for that? And I didn't really make that argument. It sounded good in my head, but when I wrote it down, it doesn't really fit together that well. And so even if you just do that, even if you write for yourself, I think that's a superpower. Writing in public is it definitely takes some guts. You have to put yourself out there, but the feedback you get from others and the opportunities you get, I mean, I think it is the way to go. It's not easy. I don't want to give any illusions that anybody can do it. I'm fortunate to have made it into a career now,
Mhm.
even though it's something I love to do. I wish I could do more of it now that I'm an author. There's all kinds of other author stuff you have to do that's not writing.
Yeah.
But I mean, whenever I have more time for that, it's so beneficial. And you actually build a huge community of people who are amazing people out there. I can't tell you how many, I've lost count of how many friends I've made just because somebody read an article or reached out and we connected somehow and we saw each other at a conference or helped each other in one way or another. It's a wonderful real life community, not just an online community.
I love to surprise people by saying that I invited online friends whom I had never met before to my wedding because, yeah, I read something they'd written and it touched me and I emailed them or left a reply or vice versa. And you can really build really strong relationships. There's something so intimate, even when you're sharing out to a platform where you're reaching hundreds, thousands, potentially more readers. When you're sharing this kind of in process, here's what I think. What do you think?
Mm. I write about, my own struggles and my own journey and how I solve it. I think for that, you really are missing out, I think, by not at least doing yourself the favor of, leave it in draft. Have that thing that you're struggling with, that relationship that you're working on, that job stress that keeps coming up, the personal challenges, just writing out what you're doing about it. It's almost like a prayer in a way. I don't know if
Mhm.
you find this with when you write, but there's something about how like you're articulating the problem, you're defining potential solutions to that problem, and then what you are going to do next. I mean, that's like a three-part essay right there, right? And it is kind of a meditative or a prayer practice of just writing that out. And if you don't publish, you don't publish, or maybe you publish under a pseudonym. I haven't met anybody who's done it and hasn't benefited. There's something I really miss in a way, doing it for the purity of just that. I mean, I know everybody, like when you get started, you really want an audience and you want to get to hundreds of thousands of followers and people commenting and like building a following. But there's something really beautiful about not caring. There's something really beautiful about just putting something out there. And if somebody finds it, amazing. Somehow they connected to it. And if nobody does, that's cool too. But building that muscle, building that practice over time. Because once you have an audience, well, then you start worrying about, well, are they still going to like it? Are they going to think it's as good as the last thing? I meet expectations. All these other pressures come about. So I would encourage folks to start even when they think they're not ready.
A lot of our people watching this will want to know more about how you make a living as a writer. A lot of them are part of the Medium Partner Program. They pay all their posts, but that's as far as they get. I think they really get a lot of value from hearing what does it really look like to be a professional writer on the internet? What does it take? What are the different components that go
Hmm.
into that?
I don't write books. I write a series of ideas,
Mhm.
whether I publish them or not, but I write short thoughts and short ideas that after many, many years become the skeleton of a book. So maybe out of, 200 articles, maybe 50 of them will be connected in some way because you keep chewing on different ideas. And so that's how actually all three books came about was I just kept writing about this topic and that topic and maybe they weren't connected, but sometimes they were. And then after, a year, if you write every week for a year, you're gonna have 50 articles, let alone if you do it for 5 years, in my case, before I published a book, you'll have lots and lots of articles and plenty of words to choose from to write a book, right? A book is, maybe 60,000, 70,000 words. You've got plenty of pages, you got plenty of words. So if you just keep cranking out those 1,000 word, 2,000 word essays, you're going to have tons of content, right? That's what people worry about. So to me, that was much easier because if I sat down, I was like, I'm going to write a book.
Hmm.
That's impossible. That sounds really scary. But I'm going to write an article this week. That's not so bad. I can do that. But if you just keep doing that, you'll eventually have books. So I'm a nonfiction author, and so my experience can be very, very different from a fiction author. But for me, it's a very seasonal profession. So you have an idea, you write about it, you blog about it, you develop it. About a year or two away from, okay, I think I really have something here. You put together a proposal, you send it to your agent. By the way, getting an agent is often the hardest part of the job. Once you have an agent, you're probably going to sell a book to somebody if an agent thinks you're good enough to take on as a client. And then uh, you get a contract, you get an advance. When you're starting out, it's very, very low, but then as you get to book two and three, it goes up very quickly
Hmm.
if your other books were successful. And then they leave you alone for a year. You write a book, you send them the manuscript, they tear it to bits. I was lucky in that I am married to the best editor in the world, and so my wife Julie makes my books a whole lot better. It's sometimes very difficult for me mentally to see my books torn apart, but at the end of the process, they're always much, much better. And then after you publish, you promote. That's the phase I'm in right now.
Mm.
Which, if you, I mean, this is one of the reasons I tell people not to find ghostwriters, and I always advise against it. Not because I'm sure there are circumstances where it's a good idea. Like if you just want to get a book out into the world, sure, but you can always kind of tell when someone didn't really write their book.
Mm.
Like, because writing the book is one thing. You could, to finish a book, it's out into the world, but it's not like it used to be where if you had a publisher, they would make sure your book got onto a shelf, right? Like I think maybe 10% of my books are physical books sold in bookstores. The vast majority of my books, probably 90% of my books, are either bought on Amazon, they're audiobooks, or they're Kindles,
Mm.
ebooks of some kind. So being in a bookstore does not assure sales. You got to sell the books. And so if you're not comfortable with speaking about your book ad nauseum, like I've been on probably 300 podcasts, and then many
Oh
of
my
them I've
gosh.
done repeated. So you have to do a lot of talking about your book. But if you love the topic enough to have written an entire book about it, oh, let me tell you, I'll tell anybody about my book all day long. It's catnip, right? I love it. That's what an author loves to do. So I never get sick about talking about my books because I put so much work into them, and I think the topics are super exciting. I mean, that's what kept me motivated to write them. So that's kind of the full life cycle, and then you rinse and repeat again and again. I think it's an awesome job because I get paid to learn. I can't think of anything cooler than I have a question, I have a problem that I really want solved. I read other books on the topic, and look, most of the time there's been a book that's written on the topic that's awesome that I don't need to write another book on the topic. But every once in a while, like every 5 years, I read everything I can find on a problem I'm having, and nobody fixes it for me. And so that's what happened with all of my books. And so I decide, okay, I'm going to go to the research. I'm going to start from first principles. For me, my process is very intensive in terms of research, like actually looking at the original studies to figure out what's true and what's not, because there's a lot of misinformation out there, a lot of unscientific gobbledygook, and that people believe that I like to dispel those myths. And then yeah, that's basically the process, and I feel very fortunate to be able to do it.
You mentioned earlier that getting an agent is the one of the hardest parts. What
Hmm.
do you think helped you get an agent?
I don't know. That's a great question.
Probably your amazing
I
writing.
Well, I appreciate that. I don't know because I put out this article, like any other article. I never sent it to an agent. I just got an email from Christy Fletcher, who turns out to be one of the best agents around. I've worked with her for years and years, and she's fantastic. And I didn't know she was so prominent until she said, "Okay, I work with this author, all the people I admired and work with." And that was that. So it was a function of just putting yourself out there And
Thinking in public, writing in public. Yeah.
exactly. And then good things kind of happen. That's not the only way that good things can happen, but it certainly is one way and worked for me.
Yeah, I think that's something a lot of writers dream about is this idea that you don't have to self-promote, actually, that you can be discovered kind of magically through the power of
Mm.
your writing. What I love about your story is that it is true. That can happen, but also that doesn't absolve you of the need to still do a lot of self-promotion afterwards and your own marketing work. So that's
Oh.
a really lovely picture of like it can happen, but there's still a lot of reality of work behind it. And
Even if you get lucky with one part, you're not going to get lucky with the entire life cycle, right? Like I still got to really pound the pavement with every book I publish, even though I've sold a million copies of my past two books. I don't know who bought my book. I have an email list and I have Medium followers, but I don't have phone numbers of people who bought my book. So I got to start all over in a way. It gets easier. It does get easier. Like you can get more leverage. But I will say this too. I want to give a kind of a word of warning that book publishing itself is probably a bad thing to do if you just want to make money. And again, I'm only speaking from personal experience. I don't know anything about fiction writing, but for nonfiction writing, the odds are really stacked against you. I mean, I don't know how many hundreds of thousands, if not millions of books are published every year. And, very few will earn out their advance. Very, very few will actually make any money. The good news is that there's other things you can do with that writing career, right? Once you have a book, once you have a blog, once you have a publication, people will call you for speaking gigs, for consulting engagements, for all kinds of other things that can lead to other income opportunities as well.
I'm curious if you're promoting your book on Medium, other obviously than doing this interview with me, and we've got some exciting writing prompts coming up. How have you been thinking about promoting your book using Medium as a tool?
So mostly just articles. As far as I know, Medium doesn't have ads, so there's not a hard sell to promoting on Medium. I think it's just more of the same, right? Writing articles that I think people might enjoy, that I enjoy writing, and I learn something from in the process of writing. And if they like the writing, they will see a little prompt at the end that says, "I have a book," or "This is an excerpt from a book," or "To learn more, here's my book." That's about it. Do you have any ideas for me? Maybe there's something I'm missing.
No, I think that's actually, I just wrote an article for the Medium Handbook, which is like a, I don't know if you're new to Medium, what you can do to be successful here. And that's like actually the exact advice I gave book authors is like write about things that you think your ideal book reader would be interested in. Medium's system is trying to match make readers to what we think they're going to care about, and that's the best way to do it. And then of course, yeah, include the link in your bio, include the link at the bottom. But that's your you've got all the best practices. You're even a verified book
Yeah.
author on Medium, and yeah, it looks like you link to your website where people can find more about your books
Yeah.
near and far. I have to say, I've had that song stuck in my head all morning when I was looking
What
at my schedule
song?
for the day.
Oh, the one from Titanic.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. I know what you're talking about now. Yes.
uh,
Now everybody listening also has that song in there.
yeah, you'll be singing Celine Dion all day. I think that's who
Yeah,
sings it.
Celine Dion. That's
Yeah,
right.
I would
That's
be so
right.
embarrassed if that's not it. But yeah,
Um,
one thing that I know a lot of our viewers and readers are thinking about a lot, who isn't these days, is the role of AI in writing. Can you share your philosophy on that, or what you think when you are tempted to use AI tools, if you are at all, what you see when you
mhm.
think when you see AI writing out in the wild? Shoot.
Yeah, yeah. So I, like probably every author out there, has definitely used AI a lot. Anybody who tells you they're not is lying or stupid. Like, why not? There's so much benefit to it. But I've definitely found its limitations. Okay, so I'll tell you what I think what AI is very good for, what saves me tons of time is the research part of it.
Mm,
I used to have to go to a physical library and look up a study in a journal and actually get out the paper and read it because it wasn't all available online. It was a huge pain back when I first started, and then it came online. But even then, I had to like read through every line. Well, now I can. Put in a study into an LLM and ask it for the main ideas and explain it to me in plain English and ask it about the study limitations and concerns and counterpoints, and it's amazing. I mean, it saves me so much time with academic research. So for that, unbelievable, amazing. It's also really good with the standard editing type stuff. Like
mm,
stupid type of mistakes that I would make in grammar or spelling. Amazing, amazing. What it's not good for is actually the most important thing that a writer does is novelty.
mm,
So for me, if I can't entertain the reader, they won't keep reading. Doesn't matter how good my ideas are, doesn't matter how true they are. If they're bored, then I lose them. And AI is boring. It writes
Yes.
really boring stuff because by definition, that's what they do. LLMs are trained on what's already been written. So it's not very original. It gives you the same stupid ideas again and again. Not stupid. It gives you the same ideas that everybody's heard of a million times.
Hmm.
And so for nonfiction writing, it's just not original. That's easy for me. It's like, what's the problem? I have lots of problems. So it's always easy for me to find something to write about. And then what I have to do is the hard work of what's a novel take on that problem that I haven't already seen, right? So like if I try someone else's techniques and they don't work, what might be an alternative that might work better, right? And so I have to construct that idea. Then I have to do the research about what does the science say, and then put it together in an interesting way with stories that illustrate the research. AI sucks at that. It's really boring because it just tells the stories everybody already knows.
We talked a lot about the value of writing as thinking, and I think whenever I
Mm,
see something that is clearly AI generated text, I'm sad because I think even if this person had a cool idea, if they've used AI to write this article like ChatGPT or whichever model,
mm,
they've missed this opportunity to kind of figure out what they think about it, what their
yeah.
opinions are. And it's, I don't know, to me it's a shame.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think the big picture stuff of here's what I want to say. That's what we were talking earlier about how like
Right.
some people will use ghostwriters and you can kind of tell because they get interviewed about it and they don't know what they're really talking about because they didn't do the thinking part of it.
Hmm.
I think it's the same thing with AI.
Yeah, that was really
Yeah.
interesting. So thank you for that. Okay, two more questions.
Sure.
First of all, as you think about writers who are listening to this and thinking, what can I do to be more like Nir and to have this kind of career or these books or these articles? What advice would you give them specifically about writing on Medium, but also just writing online?
I think I'll dispel a myth that I hear quite a bit. If I share my best ideas in an article online, then people won't buy my book. I hear that a lot, right? I wanted the good stuff for the book. And I think the exact opposite is true. That is not good advice. I think you want to put your best stuff online and you can also include it in the book. People think, well, if I put it online, then why would people buy the book? Nobody remembers. And even if
Mm,
they did remember, they want it put together in an organized fashion. When these ideas come out of your head, at least for me, they're not organized in terms of sections and chapters. They're all over the place. It's a big hairball of messy ideas from article to article. But when I sit down, I look at, okay, here's everything I've written. How does this all fit together? How is it structured? How can people then have something that is a physical manifestation of these ideas and share with a colleague or their family members? That's what they're paying for. Even if they know some of the ideas, right? How many ideas do you kind of get the gist of from a book, but you still want the full book? You basically know, Mel Robbins wrote this great book. Let them, you kind of know what it's about. It's about letting them, right? It's in the title. But you still want the book because it's going to give you much more than just that one idea. And so you see that again and again. I think a lot of people are like, no, I need to sit and work on the book and then maybe I'll start doing the promotion. If you don't do it on the front end, you're going to be too tired on the back end. And you're probably going to have a lot of ideas in that book that nobody really cares about. Whereas when you share your best ideas in public, you get feedback, right? If you see that article that I thought was amazing and nobody really read it or shared it or commented on it, well, maybe rethink that. Versus, I've had many articles I thought, this is just a silly little idea, right? Like the idea that created that article that got me my agent, right? The strange sex habits of Silicon
hmm.
Valley. Big deal, right? Well, the article did really well and found me an agent. So I didn't expect that. So if I had kept that hidden to myself and said, oh, I'm only going to keep it in when I publish my book, it wouldn't have earned me all the success that they later created.
Second question to those people who might be watching this interview and wondering where they can find more of your work, more of your writing, more of your thinking, where would you send them?
Well, certainly on Medium, you know where to find me. If you just type in my name, you'll see my publication, is Psychology of Stuff. And on my blog is nirandfar.com. Nir spelled like my first name, so that's Nir and far.com. And my latest book is called Beyond Belief.
Are pre-orders already open?
They are. Yeah, the book
Amazing.
is available March 10th.
Oh my gosh, that's coming up so soon. Well, you
Yeah.
now all the viewers can find your writing and your books, and all that's left for me to do is say thank you so much for your time. I've really, really enjoyed this interview. I love talking to other writers. It's been such a pleasure to hear and learn from you. So thank you for your time and for sharing all this wisdom. I can tell that you've given us your best ideas, so I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you so much.